Greetings hobbyists, this is Artisans of Vol, and in this video we're going to be having a look at the new 3D scanner from Revopoint. I'm going to do a quick unboxing and then we're going to have a look at how well it scans on a couple of different test objects. You can find all that in the chapters, so do feel free to skip to the section that you're most interested in. So obviously the channel doesn't normally cover things that's not Blender related, but it is a 3D printing channel and I do want to cover this because it's just arrived. And this is the Revopoint Mini, and it's just come from China, where I kickstarted it. And I should make that clear, I paid for this with my own money, so who knows if it's going to be any good or not. But either way, it's not been sent free. My own hard-earned cash has gone into this, so let's have a look at it. First, I will say it's been very nicely packed at this point, and it does feel pretty robust. I'll also say it's been sent by FedEx, which is always a bonus as opposed to something turning up or you seeing that it's being shipped by Hermes and you realise that it's going to be basically thrown at your door. So definitely a bonus. Pretty happy with that. I'll also say I did have to pay a hefty customs charge. Well, I mean the standard customs charge, but because it was sent by FedEx, this meant that they paid it for me, so it didn't slow down it being delivered. It automatically happened, and then they sent an email saying, "We've paid this for you, you need to pay us back, otherwise it's not going to get delivered." And as long as you do that quickly, it's not going to delay anything, which is really nice. And as you can see, it's really well packed at this point. We've got a lot of foam insets here, and we've got a big overall package that I think we can pull out. Oh, and actually it's done in bits. So let's do this bit at a time. He says throwing things all over the place. So, first bit at the top. This is the turntable that was ordered with it. Let's put those over there. And essentially you'll notice it's got a lot of dots on it, and it's also got some quite nice bits around the side here for levelling it. So you're going to make sure that everything looks level, and you've got the same on the side here, and assumingly that will just move backwards and forwards. Haven't had a look at the instructions yet, I'm literally opening it as you see it. And you've got the power cable for it, so this will rotate automatically around and that will allow you to scan it, and it uses these dots to help orient itself from what I understand. I'm not sure what these screw holes are, maybe something that allows you to hold things on it. So, pretty excited about this because a lot of traditional 3D scanners you sort of have to move around, so that's pretty good. Let's move that to the side over here. So, here we have the Revopoint Mini. The package is pretty nice. It's pretty weighty as well. So this is a 3D scanner, and it's the newest 3D scanner from Revopoint. As I said, this was kickstarted, but you can now buy it. And at the time of recording, it is priced at £719 without the turntable, and then £799 with the turntable. And let's have a look. So, again, really, really nice packaging. It's all been sort of put in foam, it's individual bits. There's this nice little bit here for potentially test printing it, or test scanning I should say, and seeing what that looks like. It's like a bust of some description. I'll probably use that for one of the test ones. Now, interestingly, this is, I mean, it's all white, and if you're going to be scanning miniatures with this, I mean, if it can do it with this, and this is very smooth and highly detailed, it'd be good to see what else it can do with things that are sort of mono-coloured. Then we've got a sort of standard thing for attaching, and we've got the handheld version of this, and it does have these really funky, not sure how to get these out, you just pull them, these legs, so you can use that with the turntable, and assumedly this goes together in some way. Not sure, I'll have to have a look at that in a second, but this is pretty nice as a little handheld device. I like that. It's pretty cool. Instructions from the look of it. Oh no, it's just a bit of card. Okay, I'm guessing that is for something if you want to back something to try 3D scanning if you don't have the turntable. The turntable is an optional extra, so that's interesting. Oh, and you've got a little stand to hold it up. Okay, so yeah. Not sure I'm going to be using that much, but who knows. It comes with a USB stick, probably software, don't know. Many cables, are more dots. So I believe you can do things with these dots. So you put them on a mini or a miniature or whatever you want to scan, and it helps it targeting it. Someone can correct me on that if you're wrong, but lots of stuff with that. And then we've got the actual 3D scanner itself, and it lives up to its name. It is mini. Let's have a look. So this is a blue light scanner, which, I mean, I don't know that much about 3D scanning. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I've tried it a couple of times with a couple of different things, but this is a blue light scanner. It's meant to be one of the better sort of versions of scanners that are going to be affordable, and essentially it's got a resolution of 0.02 millimeters, which should be good enough for pretty much anyone, I'd imagine. And from the look of it, that just slots into there. Let's move these out of the way. There's not much to it, actually. You've got, obviously, the bits on the front, different lenses, and on the back you've got a single push sort of play button, which I'm guessing is what starts the scanning. I mean, it's got some heft to it, and it's sort of metal fronted with a plastic back. I mean, like I said, it does feel really solid, so looking forward to giving this a try. So let's have a look. So I thought we'd start with a mini that actually comes in the box. You'll notice I've put some blue tack on the bottom. Go out and buy some blue tack if you're getting the turntable. It's a really nice turntable, but it does have a tendency to do this. And that's because the turntable is a satin black to help it not show up on the scan. So the blue tack helps. So this is what the software looks like after it's been installed. And installing it's really easy. Just go to the website, install it, and then it downloads some firmware onto the Revopoint Mini to give it its latest update. And connecting the turntable is pretty easy as well. Once you've done so, you can change how it's rotating and the angles it's going to be at for each rotation. So far, so easy. It's pretty common sense. The one thing I will say is, as you're connecting the turntable using the software, it does take a little bit longer than I expected. So just bear that in mind and don't rush it. It will show you what you're doing on the screen, and it will probably take somewhere like 30 seconds to connect. Once you click scan, this is the screen that's going to await you. You set up your scan. I'm putting the setting to be the feature setting, and then I'm using the dual axis turntable. Next, if you've got the turntable, then you set that up. With the rotation speed, I've got that as slow as possible, and then you can set it so that you can change the angle of each of the rotations, and the turntable will just angle itself to that. That will then take you to this screen where you can do your final adjustments, mainly focusing on how light or dark it is, and it will show you if things are too light because there'll be bits in red, or too dark because there are bits in blue. That's using the camera on the bottom left hand side. So a really nice feature there, so you can change the lightness of your settings. And then you just click play and it starts scanning. Now I will mention the bit at the top, which was really nice. It tells you if your camera is too near, a perfect or excellent distance, a good distance, or too far. So something that's quite useful to do. As you can see, as it's scanning, it shows the bit that it's scanning in green and the bit that it's previously scanned in blue. And other than that, it just scans away, changing the angle on the turntable to what you've set it, and then hopefully eventually you come up with a good scan. So I'm sort of going to skip that bit out just because it takes a while, and then we'll have a look at what the end or final processes are to get your STL. At this point you get this screen, and I'm going to be honest, the first time I looked at this I was a bit concerned because, well, this guy looks pretty grim. Like, the nose is definitely not meant to be that wide, there's not that much detail on it. So yeah, I found that a little bit concerning, but thought let's carry on with it. So all you do is come over to this option where you've got your fuse options, and you can set how detailed you wanted it to be. I've set this to the highest level of detail, and then you click fuse. Now this process takes a bit of time, which definitely isn't helped by the fact that I'm recording at the same time. So again, I'm going to skip through this. One thing to note is that in all the processes on the Revopoint Mini, and this is going to be my first gripe, the progress bar is rubbish. It sort of stops at certain places, I'm guessing where it's doing a certain function. For me, it was around 63% and about 94 and 95%, and it sort of hung there for a good amount of time. I really wish they'd sort of sorted something out where it would actually accurately give your percentage in terms of time as opposed to functions. I mean, it's not the biggest thing in the world. You just sort of walk away and go and get some coffee or something, but that is something to bear in mind. Don't panic that it seems to be stuck in one place, and just let it go. And next we get this with our fusing being complete, and at this point it's starting to look a little bit better, but still not great. We've still got some slight artifacting here, And since having made this, I have sort of realized that you can actually at this point go into the Revopoint Studio, which can do a lot of things to take away these additional points and to make it less messy if you want to. Now, obviously I haven't done this, so at this point you sort of click this box here. You can change the mesh quality, so I've got it at the highest it can be. I'm filling the holes because any little holes need to be filled, and you can denoise it to see how smooth that you want it. And I've put this to 0 just so that I can see how it was going. So once again, we're going to click this to make it into a mesh, and once again this is going to take a bit of time, so I'm just going to skip through that. And now that's finished, you can see the results. And you can see what I mean, this is cleaned it up really well. I mean, we've still got the blue tack blob at the bottom, but I put that there, we can clean that up later. But look at the detail on this. You can even see the little details around the eyes. And you do have some points which aren't perfect, typically the bits that weren't scanned as much because I didn't angle it up, but I mean, this is looking pretty sharp. Then we can come over and save it, or we'll export it, and you've got 3 saving options. So .ply, .obj and STLs. Now since recording this I have made some attempts at doing other bits, you'll see one in a second, and I will be honest, the OBJ file hasn't done very well for me when bringing it into Blender. It gets quite delayed. The .ply and the .stl generally seems to have come out best for me. So I'd go with one of those two at this point. So let's check this bust out in Blender. So File, Import, and then we want to go to .ply as that's the saving option that we chose. And as we do that, we have 2 options. We've got the fuse, which is the dot cloud. We don't want that, we want the mesh. So import that, and then it will take a couple of seconds to do the importing, maybe a little longer because I'm recording. And once that's imported, we can normally tell because the mouse changes, and you can also see that there's the green dot in the center, which shows it the object origin, but we can't see the object. I normally press the period button on the number pad so that we can zoom to the majority of the figure, and then we can see what we've got. And I mean, look at it. That's just fantastic. I mean, the detail is incredible. I mean, I was pretty blown away with this when I first got this up, as I just wasn't expecting it to be that good. I mean, you can even see on the side here where we've got this line, which is an imperfection on the bust itself. But look at the detailing around the eyes and the hair, like really fantastic. Now, I will say this has got a lot to it because this was on the highest setting. In most instances, I'm probably going to reduce this, and you can do that quite easily by coming over to the modifiers, add modifier, and then go to decimate. Keep it on collapse, and you've got a ratio here. So at the moment we've got in the order of about 3.5 million faces, and that's at a ratio of 1. If you just click on that, whatever number you're going to type in, so for example if you want half, you're going to type in 0.5, leave that to work, and that's going to half the number of faces. Again, this will take a bit of time as Blender works everything out, and it must be said that 3D scanning on a whole seems to be a process where you want to have something else to do at the same time as you're waiting for it to work, but you can see now that's brought it down to, well, half the amount, so 1.7 million faces, and there's been no loss in detail here really. So pretty successful considering this is the first time I've ever really 3D scanned anything, and I've sort of been guessing my way through the software at this point. So time to go away and try some other things, and the first thing I want to try is something in 28mm. So let's get straight on and have a quick look at that, because for a number of people watching the channel, I imagine that's what you want to see. A Mark 6 Marine seemed like a good place to start. It's a 28mm model, but it's a little bit larger, it's got some smooth surfaces, it's also got some more detailed surfaces. You'll also notice that I started printing from the back. Having done a couple of scans between these, I suddenly realised that actually you don't want to have too many overlapping scans at the same place. It seems to be the bit that causes some confusion and then needs some cleanup. So actually you seem to want to do one scan of the major detailed features, but as the turntable does a full rotation, what seems to work quite well is that you start at the place where you're least worried about there being a little bit less detail. Then I did the standard things of fusing and then bringing the mesh together. And this is the result I got. Now I need to leave it to you to decide the level of detail that you think makes this 3D scanner worthwhile. For me, this is all I could ever really ask. I mean, yeah, okay, it'd be great if this was an exact copy, but that's never going to happen. At least not from one quick scan the way that I just did. Now, also, I don't know, there's probably ways of making this better. In fact, I'll talk about one in a second. But for me, I want this as a base to be able to make additions to models. I want to be able to see the major points, the thicknesses, the widths without having to measure them with a caliper every single time. And you can see all the major details really nicely here. You've got those major shapes that you need, but it definitely doesn't include all of the finest tiny points of detail. So if you're wanting to rip off other designs, then you're just not going to be able to, at least not for a 28mm model. I mean, the bust is definitely of a bigger scale. If this was maybe something like 54mm scale, something like Inquisitor models, then yeah, you've probably got all the detail you need, but it's just not going to happen at 28mm. And to be perfectly honest, as far as I'm concerned, that's a good thing. I don't think people should be scanning other people's miniatures just to be able to make direct copies of them. I mean, if you really want to, go out and make it yourself, and if it's, yes, some fan-made sculpt that looks pretty much the same, at least you've made it from scratch and you're posing it yourself. So here you can see the Space Marine in Blender, and I'm just doing a little bit of cleanup to get rid of some of the extra bits that were scanned. That's the actual points where it's using it as references on the turntable. And yeah, like I said, I'm perfectly happy with this. I think this will do exactly what I need it to do. Again, zoom in really close. Yes, you are missing some of the details, but that's not the point of this for me. I want to be able to make things to add to my miniatures, not to be able to print off copies of things that I can just buy. So I'm afraid you don't get to do the 3D printer goes brr from this. The final thing I want to mention is this, which is the Revo Studio. This comes with it and you can download the software, and it does a lot of things to allow you to modify the mesh. It allows you to make things a little bit sharper, get rid of a lot of the erroneous data before you actually convert it into a mesh. The other thing that it can do, which is really nice, and I think this is where a lot of getting really high resolution scans is going to come in, is instead of having one scan where the turntable moves round for each pass, I think actually doing separate scans and then bringing them together using this, so there's an alignment feature, is going to get you better results. I also have since found that there's a number of things that I was doing wrong during the scanning process. I mean, not the scanning itself, more the setup. For example, I had sprayed the Marine so it was white. That's going to help a lot. Doing it with base plastic did not work very well. Handley Games Workshop Wraithbone spray seems to do that job perfectly. Revopoint actually do a spray that turns things white and then it evaporates away so you don't get left with any residue, which is really cool. But as well as that, apparently my background and surround should have been black. I mean, mine was pretty much white and light blue, so that's not great. My lighting could have been slightly better because you don't want too much harsh lighting. So there's a number of things to try out. Like I said, this is me really at the beginning of this as a journey. To end with, I just thought I'd give a bit of a summary about my thoughts for the Revopoint Mini. On the positive side, it was really easy to set up. In fact, it was fantastically easy to set up and to get everything working together with the turntable. Honestly, I was really impressed with that, especially because some people had mentioned that they had had problems with it in some of their reviews. To be honest, I think that was because they were sent out early versions and this is the more up-to-date software. I'm also really happy with the scan quality. I think that bust shows exactly what this is capable of doing. It could be absolutely amazing if you want to scan anything 54mm and above and then potentially shrink it down. You could do some absolutely awesome things with this, so I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with it. For my purposes, getting general sizes and shapes for creating add-ons to miniatures, again, this is exactly what I was looking for, and anything I can do beyond that is an absolute bonus. So being able to scan larger objects is great, and I've seen some fantastic scans of people trying to scan larger objects like game controllers and engine blocks and things like that, and the precision has been really good, and they've reported back some really positive things. I also just generally like the software. It's quite easy to navigate and it does exactly what I need it to do, and that Revopoint Studio I think's got a lot of potential for actually upping the quality that I'm going to be getting from my scans. Finally, for the positives, I really want to mention that calibration sheet, which I thought was some sort of backing card. Now, I thought it was some backing card because I didn't think you could normally calibrate your own 3D scanners. From what I've read for previous models, both by Revopoint and from other manufacturers, you have to send it back to the manufacturer to get it recalibrated. And that can be caused by a number of things, especially if you just like knock it. And obviously that's going to be really annoying to have to send it all the way back, get them to calibrate it, then there might be a cost, and there's definitely going to be a cost in the shipping. So the fact that you can do that yourself is definitely a really big plus plus for this over other 3D scanners. Well, what about the negatives then? I think this next one falls into both categories. I'm guessing it's possible to get better scan quality than what I'm getting. So there is going to be an element of practice that's needed with this, and that takes time. Though while saying that, that means this just gets better quality, and that's great as well. I don't think it's going to ever be perfect for scanning things in 32 or 28mm scale, at least not individual infantry miniatures. That's just not going to happen. However good this gets, I just don't think it's going to be possible, but there are some things that I really want to try out and see if it does help with that. And finally, well, is it worth the cost? For me, having kickstarted it and it being about half the price, I think it was somewhere between 40 and 60% off, I would say that's more than worth it. I'm really happy with that price point. Is it worth £800 to get it with the turntable? I think if you're going to use it a lot, yes. I think for the average person, maybe not. I've got a feeling that maybe Kickstarter was the place to get this. I wonder if they'll do anything like Black Friday deals. I'm not saying that they're going to. It's just something to consider, because if they do, I'd say actually, while I was ecstatic to get it at about half price, I would say getting it about 25% off. I could see some value there at that price point. £800, maybe not. So for me, this is a very fun start point. I'm definitely going to be making those changes that I mentioned to my setup and see if I can up that quality even further. But what do you think? Are you impressed with this as a product? Or isn't the quality good enough? Or is it just too expensive? I'd really like to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'd also like to hear your thoughts on the video. Is this something you find useful, having some products that are relevant to 3D design for Blender and for miniature making useful? Or is this something you just don't want to see on the channel? Do let me know. It's really good to hear what you guys want. Have a great day, guys.